Welcome to Going in Grace, a podcast where we go beyond simply understanding God's Word. We explore how to live it out daily, making a meaningful impact in our lives and the lives of those around us. Let's tune in to this week's episode.
This week, our Wilderness Season series continues. Last week, we explored Moses' wilderness season. Now, let's explore the children of Israel in the wilderness after their amazing exodus from Egypt. To provide a little background for those unfamiliar with the story, beginning in Genesis 46, we find the Israelites first entering Egypt as a company of 70 people. They moved from the land of Canaan to Egypt due to a devastating famine. And Joseph, a son of the Hebrew patriarch Jacob, was second in command in Egypt at the time. Fast forward a few hundred years, and we now see that an insecure Pharaoh, who doesn't know the history of the Hebrews in their land, or Joseph, the Hebrew leader that saved their nation in the past, is now determined to subjugate the Hebrews with greater cruelty. He is intimidated by how the Lord is causing the Hebrews to increase in numbers, and he is worried that one day they will revolt against the Egyptians. In comes Moses, sent by God to serve as God's man to deliver amazing plagues and judgments on Egypt. Following these episodes, we end up with the Israelites leaving Egypt, Pharaoh thinking twice about his decision to let them go, one final showdown in the middle of the Red Sea, and boom, the Israelites are both free and unconcerned about the now hundreds of thousands of dead warriors of Egypt. They have all been drowned in the sea. So after such a great victory, God moves them into the promised land swiftly, and everything ends happily ever after, right? No. The Israelites find themselves, you guessed it, in the wilderness. As we discussed in lesson 1, we know that wilderness seasons teach us about God and ourselves. Let's check out what the Israelites needed to learn. Exodus 15:22 through 25 says, So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. Then they went out into the wilderness of Shur, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. Now when they came to Marah, they could not drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore, the name of it was called Marah. It means bitter. And the people complained against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. When he cast it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a statute and an ordinance for them, and there he tested them. Right on the heels of the amazing crossing of the Red Sea, on dry ground, by the way, with Pharaoh's army all being destroyed, we see the Israelites face a challenge and begin to complain. The Lord provides for the children of Israel so that they have drinkable water. And everything goes smoothly from then on, right? No. A little while later in Exodus 16:1 through 3, we see the next episode. It reads, And they journeyed from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they departed from the land of Egypt. Then the whole congregation of the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, Oh, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Wow. The Lord provided water, and now there's a question of if he brought them into the wilderness to kill them? Are we noticing a pattern yet? Let's look at one more account to be sure. Later in Exodus 16, we see where God has begun to provide manna to the children of Israel daily. Moses has provided explicit guidelines on how they are to gather this bread from heaven and when they are to gather it. For 6 days, they will gather the bread. They are only to gather what they need for the day and not leave any of it until the next day for those first 5 days. On the 6th day, they are to gather enough for 2 days so that they can rest on the 7th day. Let's see how things went at following God's instructions provided to the people through Moses. Exodus 16:19 through 20 says, "And Moses said, 'Let no one leave any of it till morning.' Notwithstanding, they did not heed Moses, but some of them left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank. And Moses was angry with them." Verses 27 through 28 say, "Now it happened that some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather, but they found none. And the Lord said to Moses, 'How long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws?'" Now we can see the pattern, right? God was using the wilderness to test the Israelites on their trust and ability to follow instructions. Remember, for over 400 years, this was an enslaved people. They had a deep-seated slave mentality that needed to be broken if they were to step into the plan God had for their lives. We see right away that the Israelites questioned God's provision. Though they had witnessed God's undeniable signs in Egypt, plundered the Egyptians by his favor, were led daily by his very presence, saw the Red Sea parted before them, watched their captors judged and drowned, and experienced the miraculous healing of the waters at Marah, they still longed for the familiarity of bondage simply because it seemed to offer better food. To hear this, it sounds absolutely crazy, but I challenge you to consider whether we have ever been just as untrusting and silly when it comes to the Lord, as he has repeatedly shown us who he is and what he will do to help us. How many of us have cried because we lost a job, but we've lost one before and God provided the first time? How many of us were delivered from a toxic relationship only to find ourselves longing for the one good thing about that loser instead of remembering the 50 horrible things that made us beg for God's deliverance? How many of us have watched bills paid miraculously only to lose sleep the next time we have an unplanned expense? Are we really all that different? I see myself in the Israelites, provided more reasons to trust than can be counted. Yet I can still pause, like God is still trying to figure out if he wants to keep loving me and saving me over and over again. He's committed. He's proven. Us, on the other hand, may have work to do. Many of us have not grown to the trust level that will be required for who we are in God. We deal with our own version of a slave mentality, preferring shackles, because though they cut us, it is a weight we've grown familiar with. We drag these burdens with us rather than leave them and pursue the open freedom that God offers. Because in that freedom, with nothing holding us down, we fear we just might float away. In God's mercy, he offers us a wilderness season, driving us into the arms of the only one who can rebuild us into just who we are meant to be. God knows our hearts and just what we need. The central lesson we can take from Israel's wilderness experience is the importance of renewing our minds. The Israelites' mindset and lack of trust in God ultimately led to the downfall of the entire older generation that came out of Egypt. Romans 12:2 says, "And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." Sons of God can't think and behave like slaves. Loved children of God can't think and behave like orphans and arrive in their promised land. The Lord used the wilderness, a time where every day the Israelites would have to trust God to provide for their needs, as a way to teach them the mentality and behaviors that they would need to be victors. From slaves to property owners, from mistreated workers to leaders in a new land, from complainers to overcomers and examples on the earth. Sadly, the first generation of Israelites that left Egypt didn't make it out of their wilderness season. They died, refusing to accept God's love, correction, and instruction. Here is the second lesson we can learn. Let's commit to making our wilderness seasons just that, a season where we learn, grow, and eventually go. Not a place where we become hard, bitter, and unwilling to allow the Lord to teach us a new way. This week, I encourage you to consider where the Lord is trying to teach you something new and where you find that you are struggling to receive His instruction. Trust Him. He loves you, and His ways are higher than ours. You will go further with God accidentally than you ever could on your own on purpose. Let Him love you in a new and different way. And dare I say it, embrace the wilderness season. If you enjoyed this week's podcast, be sure to share it with someone. Be blessed and see you next week as we continue our Wilderness Seasons series. Bye.
You've been listening to Going in Grace. Be sure to visit us online at brandistover.com.